Test, test. Yes, now I've got audio. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I've got the stream. Phew. Yes, I've put the stream in chat and I'll shut up and then Zander can start. So I will zoom in on Zander, right, Sophia? I can't hear you. It's hang on. Okay.
Just give them another couple of minutes here to see if they can get everything working on the stream. Yeah.
Okay. I think we're fine. Yeah. Right.
Yes, your voice is coming through on YouTube now.
Ah, very good.
Obviously, there's some lag, but
Right. Yes, latency will always be an issue when you're streaming.
yeah.
About 60-second delay. Okay, gotcha. So if you're listening via YouTube, feel free to type a question or anything, comment or anything into local chat here, and try to keep an eye on that, and just be mindful of the fact that I'm hearing you a bit delayed if you're speaking in voice here versus what we're hearing on the stream itself via YouTube, but no lag with text, obviously. So yeah, great. I'm just going to dive on in here. I don't really have a precise plan for what I wanted to cover today. And a couple of caveats I feel like I should issue. I've only really been working with the Leluca head HUD for really just the past few months. So I was somewhat hesitant when Safia asked me if I'd be willing to come in and talk about this. I still very much feel like I'm learning new things about it every day, and it really has kind of blown my mind what we can now do. My background is initially as an actor, stage and screen, television, good bit of animation projects as well. And it's actually why I was drawn into Second Life in the beginning. I was really fascinated to see if this was a platform where content could be created, programming for film or live theater. This was back in, 2006. And of course, then what we were able to do with the avatars was extremely limited. So much so that I sort of lost interest in it as a medium for acting. But I feel like the technology has really evolved enormously in the last couple of years in particular. And now what we're able to do is much more nuanced, much more compelling, and opens up a whole new world of possibility, both for doing live performance and I think especially for doing any kind of filmed programming creation. Good storytellers are worth their weight in gold in any medium, and sometimes I feel like we're sort of at the dawn of this new medium. I get the feeling I think what it must have felt like to be in the early days of radio or television. We're all kind of fumbling around and trying to see what we can do and how to compensate for the things that the platform isn't that great at. For a long time now, I think we've been able to create really amazing and compelling environments. So the limitation on this platform has been the avatars, really, as far as using it for nuanced acting. But it's clearly it's getting better and better all the time. The one head and HUD that I've now got a little bit of experience working with is the Lelutka system. And I mean, hats off to those creators. I think what they've done is pretty remarkable. It's not really set up specifically for the idea of making it possible to be an actor here in Second Life. It's I think they're more interested in a broader, more commercial base, which is smart, of course. But we're learning new ways to kind of make use of this system every day. I'm going to share with you a couple of things here. First of all, I've got a note card that I want to give to you guys. It's and maybe the best way to do that is if you just each of you just reach out and tap on this Gamma actor avatar in an IM, and I can turn around and send you the note card directly. So feel free to just IM me if you'd like a copy of this. So I'll start off with just a real quick introduction. I'm in this avatar called Gamma, but in Second Life, my name is Zander Greene. I'm the founder and the co-director of the Fantasy Fair of Second Life. And just getting a couple of these note cards delivered to you guys here as you're hitting me up. Excellent. And it's in the context of Fantasy Fair that I've done most of the work that I have done as an actor here in Second Life. Safia has been doing some extraordinary work for us over the years, developing our literary festival as a component of the fair, bringing lots of great authors and stuff. Oh, you're very welcome, 12th Night, my pleasure. And in the context of the literary festival, we've done a few plays, a few theatrical productions. We did Midsummer Night's Dream, and I played Oberon and Theseus. And then later on we did Much Ado About Nothing. I played Benedict in that. And we've done a few machinima projects as well, one several years back called The Blackened Mirror. And we're now working on a series that takes some of those characters from the Blackened Mirror series and brings them into, sort of marries the setting of Fantasy Fair, which we call the Fairlands, with these characters. Thought it would be fun to mash up these genres. Blackened Mirror was kind of the love child of H.P. Lovecraft and the hard-boiled detective genre. And similarly, the new project is a mashup of that film noir Sam Spade detective story character with the fantasy genre. So that's been very interesting to as a writer, I've written the 6 episodes for this new series, and as an actor to explore what we can do with the avatars and how we can carry this to a higher level, certainly beyond anything that I've done in Second Life to date. A lot of you will have a lot more experience than I have as an actor, as a producer, a director, a writer here in Second Life. So I just think it's great that this group is getting together and sharing sage counsel and tips and tricks for how to be able to create machinima content here in Second Life. I think it's a really exciting time to be in the platform as all of this, these new possibilities are appearing. I am a member of the Screen Actors Guild and have about 24 union film projects, feature film and television under my belt. And I don't know how many plays, 200 some odd plays probably at this point. So it's been very frustrating at times to feel like, you've got your hands tied behind your back as an actor. We lamented back during Black and Mirror, which is now 10 years ago, we produced that, or more. I think that's right, Safia, 10 years or so ago. And, you want to be able to just raise an eyebrow or, have the hint of an emotion, flash across the face. And at the time, that just really wasn't possible. There were some very basic HUDs out there, but, you were talking about less than a dozen expressions, and most of them were pretty extreme, not really very usable. But as I said, what the Lelutka HUD makes possible is pretty amazing. I've also got, I just uploaded to Google Drive a document that I created for the cast of the show that we're working on now. I just put that link into local chat. And that's set up so that anybody with the link can view that. It has just some of the tips and tricks that we've learned so far. The basic Lelutka HUD is, I think the biggest problem that I have with it and still struggle with is the size of it. There's so much information on there that to cram it all into a space that doesn't just simply gobble up your entire viewable screen, some of the labels and on the various expressions and moods are awfully small. So the first thing that we discovered that's incredibly helpful, two things actually, and most of this is detailed in this PDF file that I just dropped the link for into local chat. But there's a settings option on the Lelutka head, and you'll see that it's kind of a cog wheel shape along the basic HUD once you expand it. And opening that settings menu gives you two options that are very helpful: resize and toggling between light and dark. By default, it comes up with the size as medium. It offers small, medium, and large. So I found that by just expanding to the large size and also switching from the default dark setting to the light setting, for me anyway, I found that it was much easier to be able to read the settings and the labels for the different moods and expressions on that HUD. So that's the first thing that I thought was really very helpful. It's still small. It's still kind of frustrating to try to read some of them, but it definitely helps to bump up to the large size. And just for my eyes anyway, using the light versus the dark mode was also a big help. The other thing with that HUD that's kind of tricky is if you put it on, initially it pops up as just a little dark circular icon with LEL. And I was struggling with trying to be able to move it around where I wanted to, and I didn't. Wasn't until just recently that it dawned on me that if I expand it out and open up one of the sub menus, like the settings menu, for example, and then click on it to edit, then the crosshairs for being able to move it on your screen are on your viewable screen. You won't have to shrink your screen down to a small size in edit mode in order to be able to grab those crosshairs and move it around where you want it. So moving it around is also a big help in being able to make use of it smoothly. There's times when I want it to be on the right side of my screen or on the left side, depending on what I'm trying to keep visible in my field of vision. So just moving it around to where it seems to work best in any given moment is a big help. And moving it after you've opened it up and expanded it is a lot easier than trying to move it because when it's just that single icon, it's the mover crosshairs for it are going to be about 8 miles over the top of your visible screen. So that's another thing that helps too. Just moving it around and doing so after you've expanded it. Yes, Safia just told me my lips aren't on, and that's true. I've got them switched off actually for filming purposes for reasons that I'll explain later on. If that's making it hard for anybody to be able to zero in on me, let me know in local, and I'll dig into the preferences and try to set that back. The document also includes a basic orientation to the animations menu of that Lelutka HUD, and the icon for that on the HUD is what looks to be a little triangle pointing to the right side. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 5 icons up from the bottom of the Lelutka HUD. There are also some differences in the HUDs from Lelutkas, so some of the things that I'm showing you in that document and speaking about may not exactly correlate to what you have if you're using an older version of the Lelutka HUD. But it's probably in there somewhere, and I suspect that the icons for the different functions are probably consistent across different versions of it. But that little play button is what it looks like to me anyway, from a DVD or VCR or whatnot. That's the animation menu button. And that has most of the tools that we're using as actors on set these days. And this breaks it. This system breaks down the emotional default settings into 2 general categories. The first it calls basic moods, and the second, and that's towards the top of the animations menu. And then the second one it calls basic expressions, and that's the set at the bottom of that mood, or that menu button for animations. And there's some interesting differences between those. Some of them are I've found more useful than others. In that note card that I was passing around, and also on the document that I linked to here in local chat, I made a list of each of the moods and expressions that the Lelutka HUD includes. So the note card will be especially useful, although you can copy and paste from the PDF file, or you should be able to anyway, to make your own list. What I've been doing is just going through each one and just trying it, seeing what it sort of says to me. The labels are a little misleading in many cases. The way they've chosen to label those different moods and expressions. It's not always the words I would have chosen to express them. So I'm just simply making notes after each one for myself about ones that I think are useful. I even color-coded them so I can look down my list real quickly. Green for the ones I definitely want to make use of. Yellow for the ones that are, maybe good, not so great. And red for ones that are just like a hard no for me. But something may say lively or flirty, or there's all kinds of different labels. But I'm finding in a lot of cases I don't necessarily get the same feeling when I see it on this particular avatar that the labels would suggest. So just making your own notes about it is a pretty good and useful step to take. And all of them are listed there. There are 64 moods and 64 expressions. The moods up at the top, again, this is for the HUD that I'm using, and I believe it's the latest version that they have. Those 64 moods are spread out over 4 separate pages, it says, and it gives you a previous and a next page. And there are also, for the expressions, there are also 64 of those, and those are spread out over 2 pages with a previous and a next page in that as well. So once I've gone through and made notes for each of those, now I've got kind of a palette of colors that I can dip my brush into. And what I tend to do is just, find ones that I think are useful from one moment to the next, based on what the character is going through, whatever the emotional state he's in at any given moment. And what I've been doing is just sort of taking some time. Safia is a director of the project, and so I just kind of go to her and say, this is the one I'm thinking about for this moment, and we just kind of talk through, and so in that sense, it's very much like what you do as an actor in the physical world. You're in a dialogue with the director. You're looking for emotional choices that make sense, that further the story, telling of the story. And it's really, it doesn't matter what our job is in this industry, theater or film. Ultimately, our job description is to tell the story. So that's what we're doing, and it's working. We're getting some pretty amazing results on set right now, just using this system. I'll just kind of give you, if you got your camera in on me, let me minimize a few things here and open up my animation menu. Right now, I don't have any mood or expression selected. So what we're seeing on this avatar face right now is just really the default expression. Another thing that should be important to note is that different heads, different skins, different shape settings that we can control ourselves do have an effect on the way any given mood or expression shows up actually on the face of the avatar. A couple of the actors and I were experimenting the other day, and 30 guys standing there with basically different heads, but all Alutka heads, trying the same emotion, trying the same mood or expression, and it was amazing how much variation there was from one to the next. So not all moods that are right for one avatar, the way it's constructed, they're not always going to work for every avatar. So it's interesting to note how much different customizations that you're going to make with any given avatar is going to make to what those moods and expressions end up actually looking like. Let's quickly clear out I am here, stand by. Okay, that can wait. Great. Yeah, it's amazing, 12th, how much difference that does make. I have the Skylar head pretty heavily customized, and Jorge Serapis, who's playing another character in the show, and they're basically about the same body type, but I forget which head it is he's using. It's one of the others, Connor or one of the others, and just wearing an expression like angry, or rather the mood like angry, or awake, or blasé, or charming, and it really looked like completely different, different expressions entirely. So it's, like I said, it's just a matter of going through all of them and trying all of them. There's some interesting differences between what Lelutka calls a mood and what it calls an expression. And the first difference is that moods you can stack. You can have, I don't know that there's an upper limit to the number you can have active at once. If you've got adjusted and angry, for example, chosen, it does not create an aggregate of those two expressions, of those two facial appearances. It cycles through them. Moods are dynamic. They change. They include head movements. The eyes may squint or widen at different times. The jaw may set. They'll bite the lip. There's a lot of activity where the moods are concerned. And so what it does when you have multiple ones selected is that it plays through each sequentially. If I have aloof and casual both selected as moods, it will play through the entirety of the aloof sequence, and then it will go on to the next one that I've got selected and play that, and then turn around and loop back to the first one. And I haven't really found that there's an upper limit to the number you can have. So that's interesting because while it doesn't combine those two expressions into a new third aggregate expression, there are some interesting transitions between one and the other. So if you can time it right, you can get some really interesting variations, real subtle, nuanced distinctions as it's moving from one into the next. And as I said, you can have as many selected as you like. So one of the tricks that I've been doing a lot on set is I'll have an underlying expression chosen, and I want him to go into a different expression, but then at the end of the line or in the middle of the line or whatever, I want him to go back to the first one. So I start off with the first one. As he starts to speak, I add the second one, and then towards the end of the line or whenever I've chosen, I deselect the second one, which then defaults back to the first one. So there's a lot of, it takes some experimentation, but if you've got your camera zoomed in on me, I'll show you what I mean. I'll look for a couple that are pretty, that are, as Safia said, some of them are extremely subtle, but there are a few that are very visible. I'm going to click on the one called Frown, which is on the second page of the basic moods at the top of the animations menu. So right now I'm in default, and keeping in mind that latency on the stream is going to be a little different. You'll hear this a little after the fact, but I'll click the Frown in 3, 2, 1, and you'll see his face should go into, there it goes, at least for me. So the eyebrows have lowered in the center, the eyes have narrowed a bit. If I now add to that another one that I use a lot, like, let's see, what's a good one for that? I will add serious to that, and it's a sort of a subtle difference between those things. As soon as I click on serious, it will then change to that. So I'm clicking on serious in 3, 2, 1. And so there you see it's kind of a change where the eyes blinked, the eyebrows sort of lifted up in the center a bit, and there was a bit of a twitch in the lips. So if I now take serious off, clicking it off in 3, 2, 1, you'll see that it will morph back into the initial frown face. So it's kind of a tricky thing to get the timing right on these things, but by layering different moods and by choosing when you turn them on and when you turn them off and how many you have up at any given time, you really can get a lot of extra mileage out of what this HUD is capable of. It's a very, those moods are very, very useful because they are dynamic. They do change. So even having just one selected, because it cycles through a number of different head positions and such, you can get a lot of variation on that just by the timing of when you start speaking in the sequence of any given animation. And again, this is going to be something that might change depending on the different HUDs, but there's also underneath the basic moods, you'll see a previous page and a next page button. And in between, there's something called head movement. So if that is selected, it's circled, and that means your head is actually going to be moving around consistent with whatever the mood is designed to do, whatever that animation is designed to do. But there may be times where if you're in a close-up, you don't want your head moving around too much, so you can unselect head movement, and that's going to hold the head still. The face itself is changing, but the head itself will stop moving around. So that can be very useful in a close-up in particular, where even moving, just a fraction of a meter to one side or another could take you right out of the framing. So again, hats off to the geniuses behind Lelutka, because I think the system is set up to give us a lot of control and flexibility. So that's just sort of the basics of what that system calls basic moods. Those are priority 1, looped animations. I always get confused. I think priority 1 is counterintuitively the lowest priority. So if you're using a higher priority animation, be it in your AO or whatever, we have found that there are times where priority settings in other tools that we're making use of, primarily AOs, but also poses or whatnot, can at times override these priority 1 basic moods. So that's something to be mindful of. How this Lelutka system interacts with any other animation system you might be using, such as your AO or a loose animation or whatnot. So that's sort of an interesting way to make get additional mileage out of what the Luluca head is basically capable of by stacking different moods, by toggling them on and off at different times, and by selecting or deselecting head movement. Those are all very useful and will give you a pretty astonishing range of nuance and subtlety in the performances. The contrast with looking now towards the bottom of that animation window, the difference between basic moods and basic expressions is that expressions are, first of all, not dynamic. They're static. They're just a single expression, which is just frozen on the face. I'm also finding that most of them are a little more extreme than is particularly useful. If I turn off the frown expression that I have on, and what's the other one I've got adjusted? I'll turn that one off too, get back to that neutral face, and I'll just show you the basic expression, the first one, well, one that I use a lot for him because Quinn is not a real happy dude for the most part, so the more angry expressions are proving very useful. Frown as a mood is basically his default facial expression. But there's one under the expressions called PSE 26, which I'm assuming means pose. So pose 26, which I'll click on now, and you'll see that's sort of like the frown expression, but it's much more extreme. Much more squinty eyes, eyebrows much more furrowed, and you get those worry lines sort of in the middle of the brow as well. Pose or expressions are also very different from moods in that you can only ever have one active at a time. So I've got pose 26 active here. If I were to click on another one that I use a lot is MDL14, which again, I'm just guessing they mean model 14. Clicking on that now, and you'll see that is also a pretty angry face, but it does change the configuration of the mouth a little bit. So as soon as I clicked on MDL14, PSE 26, pose 26 was turned off. So you can only have one of those active at a time. And it's priority 2, where moods are priority 1. So in other words, an expression is going to override a mood. But it will not turn off any mood that you've got selected. So if you want to be in frown, and you want to go from frown to pose 26, let me clear the expression out. So now I'm back to just frown as a mood. If I now click on MDL14, he's going to go into MDL14. But frown is still running in the background. It's just not visible because the expression MDL14 has overridden that mood. But if I now click MDL14 off, he's going to default back to the frown expression. So as long as the mood is active, then it'll be there when you turn the expression off. So expressions are static. They're a higher priority than moods, and one expression at a time can be activated, but expressions do not click off moods. So again, you can have moods active, go to an expression, turn that expression off, and the mood you had selected will still be running. 64 of each, 64 moods, 64 expressions, and I've really kind of been very impressed with how much we're able to, how much use we can get out of just trying different combinations of things. The other aspects of that animation menu under the Luluca HUD that are very helpful, the first one is a section that deals exclusively with the eyes. So you can, use the eye controls to look to the one side that just clicked to what on the HUD itself is to the right of the center position. I'll go up a couple of dots on the matrix to look up, go back to center, and you can link left and right eyes so that they're moving in tandem together. There's also a mirror option where you can switch left and right, so it becomes the characters left and right versus, say, camera left, right. So that mirror button is just sort of a personal preference thing. If I'm watching it on the stream as we're filming something, I tend to use one, whereas if I'm looking at it from, just in world, looking at from the character's perspective, then just to keep it simple for myself, I don't have the mirror option selected. But that's very useful, especially because with so many animations, and in particular with HUDs, we have the problem of the neck being locked. But you want to be able to turn your gaze to a speaker. But most animations in your HUD, walks or stands rather, are not going to leave that neck free to be able to change your focus as you alt-click around in the space. So if your neck is frozen in an animation, sometimes just using those eye controls can give you the change of focus that you want for in any given moment. And in fact, there are a lot of problems with using the neck-free animations that are out there. I finally found one of the Vista HUDs called Millionaire that has a pretty good selection of stands that leave the neck free. So I can alt-click and change what my camera is locked onto, the one speaker or another, or turned around and look sort of towards, my backside, look up, look down. And it's really great to be able to control the neck and change the character's focus like that. But the problem is going to be this. If you are cam locked, if you've alt-clicked on a speaker and you want the character to continue to look, but then you want to change to a different mood or expression, clicking on the HUD to change the mood or expression is going to break camera lock. So as soon as you click on that mood, that head's going to go, do what it does. It's going to start spinning all over the place following your mouse movements. So, happily, since we're filming, what we're finding we just have to do is take that moment to be looking in the direction you want them looking at, change the expression or mood, go back to camera lock, and then start up again. So happily, editing makes it possible to be able to get around some of those problems. But definitely there's upsides and downsides to the whole use of neck-free animations, which is why very few people really build them into HUDs much at all anymore. That's right, 12th. Camera lock is when you alt-click on something or someone. That's correct. So by alt-clicking on someone to my right, and it's an alt key, and that's going to be your the keyboard shortcut for a PC. I'm not sure what a Mac would be, but yes, for a PC it is alt, and then it's a left click with the mouse. As soon as you hold down your alt key, you'll see your cursor changes to what looks like a bit of a square sort of magnifying glass with a plus sign in the middle. It's alt click for Mac too. Thank you, Katsui. So theoretically, wherever you're pointing to when you push down the alt button is where the character's head should turn in a neck-free animation. Now that can be a little tricky for several reasons, but one of the big reasons is, as we all know, a lot of times we find ourselves in a sea of invisible prims, the canopy of trees, or different bounding boxes that, for any given object may be a lot larger than they actually appear to be. So you may be thinking you're clicking on the guy standing to your right, and yet when you click on it, your head goes spinning off in the other direction. Usually what you're finding there is that what you're clicking on is something that you can't actually see, but which has a bounding box that is largely invisible and is getting in your way. So one of the first things that I do whenever I get onto any set we're going to be shooting on is I really take the time to look around and see, okay, what are the trees and other types of objects that are likely to get in my way? And then as much as possible, I de-render all of that stuff, which not only removes it from your field of vision and stops it from interfering with your ability to alt-click around, it ceases to be something that you can accidentally click on. De-rendered isn't just invisible, it's actually gone for your viewer. But, because all that matters is what the camera is seeing, obviously. So I don't need to see the tree. As long as the camera is seeing the tree, I can get rid of it. I can de-render it if it's getting in my way of being able to change my camera lock as I need to move around. So neck-free animations, great for some things, just absolutely frustrating as hell for some other things. Yeah, right, exactly, 12. I always have to remind myself, okay, there's a thing there. Don't forget there's a thing there. And of course, when you temporarily de-render something, if you relog, when you come back in, it'll be back. You can permanently de-render things, but I don't recommend that for these purposes. So yeah, that's the basic difference between moods and expressions and how you use eye control, and the importance of knowing when you can use a neck-free animation and how to use that eye control in situations where you don't have that neck-free. The other nice thing about eye control is that if I go into something, say a mood like, something that's sort of sad, and again, you'd think it would be one of the ones that's labeled something like, sad, but I'm finding it's not always the case. I think it's scare is the one. Let me try scare. Yeah, so I'm in now one that the Leluca system calls scare, but like my notes on my list of them, I said this is a better one to use for mournful, sad, melancholy. So now I've got the scare emotion mood activated. So if I just do 2 notches below center on the eyes and look down two clicks below center, now the eyes are sort of tilted down, which I think enhances that mood. So eyes can be used not only to indicate different points that you want the actor to focus on, but also can actually enhance emotions at different times. There's also under that eye section a series of options that on the version I have is labeled norm, chill, flirty, sketchy, wide, and asleep. So that's just how wide the eyes are at any given moment. I've got the one called wide selected right now, and that was actually, I should have had that off. I was using one of the moods while we were filming yesterday where the eyes were just getting, he didn't look like he was sad. He looked like he'd been hit up with, about 100 cc's of Thorazine. He looked like he was about to fall over asleep. So I just had the wide selected in order to keep it from doing that, from making that heavily sedated eye look that he was having. But I'm taking the wide off, and that asleep does just exactly what you'd expect it to do. It closes those eyes. Tears, there are not actual tears built into this HUD. There is an option under the skins for this head that is sort of a tear. I think it's called Teary, is it? Yes, it's called Teary, which does add a bit of something, a little shininess, I think, underneath the eye. So there are some options under the skin tab on the Leluca head that you can experiment with for Teary. You will not get a dynamic tear rolling down the cheek, obviously. So that's something that we still have to look to future iterations of this system, maybe to give us as an option. But certainly, just having the ability to control how wide the eyes are, in addition to where the eyes are focused, gives us a lot of additional range of ways to enhance and expand the default emotional choices. There is also down there, just above expressions on my HUD, a section where it says lips/mouth, and that has a series of options to tick: part 1, part 2, smile 1, smile 2, smile 3, and chew. The only thing I've found useful there so far is smile 1. I'll take scare off. If I were to add something kind of playful, like I like the one called Adjusted a lot for Quinn. It's light, but not too light for him. He's never going to be, Mr. Smiley. But the mood called Adjusted I like as a kind of default lightness for this character. And if I then add the lips and mouth option called Smile 1, it gives him just a little more of a lift in the corners of the mouth. So by experimenting with combinations of moods, eye and lid enhancements, and then the lips and mouth enhancements that are there, you can again get a lot more variation into these basic moods. But again, expression is pretty much going to override everything, whereas moods and eye controls and what those can sort of be layered with one another to get different effects. So the last thing that I want to talk about and just kind of begin to orient you to is a problem that I would bet my last dollar as filmmakers in Second Life you've struggled with, and it is the problem of a lip sync and trying to get these avatars' mouths to the jaws to work in conjunction with the duration of any given line. And having that speak option built into the viewer, where if it's checked and you're speaking, it'll drive the mouth, is good, not great. The main problem with that is that it doesn't know the difference between you speaking and background noise that might be happening in your room, or if I bang my table or something like that. Consequently, what I'm sure you found is that if you've got somebody who simply needs to say thank you, and they're using the built-in speak options in Second Life to drive that jaw in action, then his thank you is going to have to be rewritten to say, thank you very much for that, I really do appreciate it, and then you're still going to have a couple of extra lip flaps at the end. Here again, the Lelutka system has given us a really great tool, which is a set of gestures that come in the package that you buy with any given head. It has to be unpacked separately, and once it's unpacked into your inventory, it is, let me tell you exactly what it is called, unpack.lelutka.gestures. So in that are a series of, not surprisingly, gestures, several of which are designed to start and stop the jaw moving. There are three different start and stop talk gestures. There are some subtle differences between them. I really haven't experimented with them too much to get a real good idea of what I don't think there's a dramatic difference between any of them. So just to keep my life simple, what I did was I picked one of the start and its corresponding stop gestures, and I customized it so that there are keyboard shortcuts to both start and stop the jaw. What I did was, because I'm right-handed, I wanted to keep my mouse hand free to use the HUD. So on my left hand, what I did was made it easy for myself by making the keyboard shortcut for start talking Control A and the shortcut for stop talking Control Z. So right there at my left hand, it's real easy. I can use one finger. I keep one finger holding down the Control key, and I can just go back and forth with my index finger between A and Z to start and stop. And I'll test it and see here. So yeah, lag is going to still create an issue here for the stop. Start too, but stop is really the real villain in this story. Trying to get it to stop and get just one mouth flap, if you've got an environment that is laggy, you're probably not going to get it. If I go as fast as I can, AZ, you'll see I got about 3 mouth flaps out of that. So maybe I can't say thanks. Maybe I do have to say thank you, pal, or something to expand that line out to make that work. But one of the main areas we're shooting in for is a sort of a build platform that's really a fairly pared down space. There's not a whole lot there, and the lag is just lovely, lovely, lovely low lag. I'm getting a stratospheric FPS, and so I'm able to go AZ super fast, and I'm able to get a single mouth flap doing that. But otherwise, what I can do is Control A starts that mouth moving, and Control Z will stop it. And what I'm generally finding is that however bad the lag is in an area, what you can do is it's basically going to be about the same overrun for any line. So what I do is I just, while crew's setting up and, I'm just over in craft services eating all the green M&Ms or whatever, I'll be testing and trying out each of my lines. So in my script, which I print out and have as a hard copy in front of me, yes, I'm an analog boy from way back when, I have my hard copy of the script in front of me, and so underneath my lines, I'll just make a line with a Z underneath the word that is my cue for when I want to stop it from moving. So, and again, this is going to be really way off if you're listening to this in YouTube, but if you're if you're watching here in World and hearing it through the voice, if I wanted to do the line, thank you, please come again, I'll say, I'll start it up as soon as I think, well, hang on, let me just check and see what the delay on the start is. So it's about a second delay. So you can go, thank you very much for coming, and please have a very nice day. So that ran over, that kept flapping way too long. So I know in that line I need to back up my Z mark, my stop mark, much sooner in the line. Thank you very much for coming, and please have a nice day. So from my view, that came pretty close to being a good stop point for the end of that line. We're not capturing audio on set for what we're filming. We'll come back in and do all of our audio in post, essentially what's called ADR, or looping in movies, audio dialogue replacement. So we're not too worried about the audio that we're capturing on set. There's a lot of problems with trying to capture audio on set. You get a much better quality if you've got a scene with 3 people, just get them all into Skype down the road. And ideally you can get them in after you've actually got a rough cut of the material you're trying to record the dialogue for, because then you can actually look and see what you've got to work with. Maybe do a share screen so you can play that back for the actors. They can look at it and see, okay, I need to be a little faster on this line, or I need to slow that down. But by getting sort of accustomed to using that Control AZ option, it really is, we really are getting a lot more articulation of the jaw moving to the lines as scripted than we've ever been able to get before. So I'm a big fan now of using the gestures in the Lelutka head to drive jaw action versus using the built-in speak that just listens for incoming voice and drives the jaw accordingly. You're able to get a lot more precise using gestures. So basically that's the tools. There's a lot more to this thing, but after about 2 months of filming right now, those are the things that I've at least discovered that are really helping me to get a lot more satisfying performance out of what this avatar is capable of. And it's really exciting because, this is sort of the fruition of what I got into Second Life for in the first place. I love the idea that we can collaborate remotely together, that we're not bound by geography to who we can become creative collaborators with. I've got friends all over the country, all over the world now, who I've worked with at different times in my life. We're not all in the same city anymore, so we can't get together and do a play together. But, I've brought a lot of them in over the years to do things, voice acting jobs that I've needed for things relating to Fantasy Fair. And man, is it satisfying to be able to reach out to collaborators of old and bring them into this new platform. They may not all have avatars, but, I can get a puppeteer to do the avatar work, and then bring in some really top-notch actors to give us some voice. I'm really excited. I think we can go ahead and drop this one. If you're a fan of the television series Babylon 5, which I was for years before I met and came to be very good friends with the actor Peter Jurasik, who plays Londo in that, the Centauri ambassador with the big, swooping mane of hair and that amazing, vaguely Eastern European accent that he does. Peter and I did a lot of plays together back during a time in my life, and Peter's going to be voicing the character of the main villain in the series we're working on now. He's come in and done a few things for us. So being able to reach out and bring other people in and old friends back to be able to work with them together, that's just, I can't tell you how happy that has made me. And seeing what all of you create is so inspiring. I think this platform is incredible, and I think that, again, we're just at the dawn of what this will all be ultimately capable of doing in terms of creating storytelling and films, and even doing live performances and things. So I think it's just really exciting that you guys as a group are getting together here and talking about these things, sharing your experiences and best practices. That's the kind of openness that I love about Second Life. We all run into people who are, a bit of an attitude problem in here, but I'm amazed by how many more people I run into in Second Life who are just head over heels in love with this platform and what it's capable of, and are excited to share what they're learning with other people. I think that's how we all get better, is um, by by not being so territorial and not being so hesitant to collaborate with one another. So um, I really do appreciate this opportunity. I hope some of that was useful for you guys. I don't know how long these sessions usually run, but I did want to leave some time so that if you had any questions, you wanted me to speak to anything more specific or anything else, I want to give you some time to do that. So you can either type in local chat or whatever, any questions that you might have. And thank you so much for taking the time and for inviting me to this. I wouldn't be a shameless old whore of an actor if I didn't also throw my actor website in there. So if you ever have a need and you want a quick look at what I do as an actor, there's my demo reel for film work is on there. So keep me in mind. I'm in between agents, so I'm cheap. And I'd love to collaborate with people who are doing exciting and compelling work here in this great platform. I think you're absolutely right, Ataro. I had a film director once say to me that in a close-up, lifting an eyebrow is an enormous choice to make. He said in a close-up, your facial features are the furniture and your eyes are the actors. And less is more. And there's nowhere that's more true than on film. On stage, depending on, and I've worked in some very small spaces, black box and lab theaters, where you could get away with very subtle, emotional choices. But in film, certainly, that's always the case. You can be extremely nuanced. And the other important thing that you bring up is that I worked with a director in an animation studio once, and he used to encourage us to do what he called pushing the graphic. The animation was done. It was up there on the screen, and we were just there to provide a vocal component to it. But he showed us so many times how just by adding a little extra inflection in what you were doing vocally, you could actually fool the eye into thinking that it was seeing a micro gesture on that character's face that wasn't actually there. So there's a lot that can be done with the vocal acting side of this process, the voice acting side. I think in some ways what we're doing is like virtual puppeteering, but at the end of the day, what it comes down to is essentially radio drama. We're back to in many ways to the 20s and 30s. So good voice actors are really, I think, going to be more important going forward in this platform than they've been in film, traditional film, physical film for a long time now. So I think you're right. Less is more. You don't need a whole lot. Sometimes just simply a narrowing of the eyes says it all. Less is more. Yeah, for sure. I know what you mean. I know what you mean, Eva. Yeah, absolutely. Flaws are what, make any one face different from the other. I think that's about two-year time where my avatar was overweight, bald, bearded, and had a scowl on his face the whole time. I just thought, in a world where everybody is beautiful, how else do you stand out? That's an interesting question, Tom. I have not, but it's something that I'm thinking more and more about. And really, the trick there would be to, again, less is more, to simplify it. The other thing that would be incredibly helpful, oh my God, I would just, I would owe a steak dinner and a bottle of good bourbon to somebody who would give me a HUD that simply counted out syllables and said, you want a 2-syllable line, click this button. Here's 8 syllables. Here's 12. Give me 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, and I can stack up those combinations to create anything I want. But it really doesn't matter what we're doing vocally in terms of the performance on set when we're coming back and doing doing all of the the voice tracks later on. So if I could just click a button that drove that jaw the exact number of syllables I need, man, that would be, oh man, I don't know if there is an upper limit to what I would pay for something like that. So so that, and then just being able to simplify some of these. There's a lot of these expressions that I know I'll never use. So if I could customize it and say, these are the 10 moods and the 5 expressions that I'm going to be using, and maybe just the ones that I'm going to be using in any given scene. So having kind of a work tray that you could pull the ones that you know you're going to need in the next 30 minutes so that they're right there. And I don't have to keep cycling over to next page, which just takes time and sort of gets in the way of delivering a free flow. Yeah, they do. The latest Evo heads will be updatable, so I did pay a little extra to get that just because I wanted it. Yeah, I wanted to be able to make sure I was eligible for future upgrades. And I'm blown away by what they've done. I am absolutely blown away already. So they're not by Second Life standards, yes, they are. I want to say that the Skylar head that I got was around 5,000 lindens. But, within that, there's a lot of range for customization. So definitely worth, I didn't think that was too bad. For what they've done here, I am absolutely gobsmacked by how much functionality they built into it. And somebody works that hard and gives me a product that I find that useful, I don't have a problem throwing down, what is that, $20 US or something like that. That's perfectly reasonable as far as I'm concerned. And the fact that it's upgradable, and I know they're going to be coming out with even more exciting stuff going forward. I think that is a reasonable price. And between that and so the formula for this particular avatar is the Lelutka Skylar head and the signature Gianni body. So just, the combination of these things with the mesh hands and the ability to change, the hand positions and all of that, all the alpha layers that come, built into the signature HUD as well. I think it's just incredible how we can combine these different systems and tools together to create one whole coherent virtual puppet for these purposes. Yep, absolutely right, Katsui. And I actually broke down and got, because these are avatars, this Gamma actor is one that we've set up so that we can use it for different performances going further on down the road. We got some sponsors from the Fantasy Fair who wanted to be episode sponsors so that we could afford to buy these, sort of these official avatars with for our actors, a number of different heads and things, so we can use them again going forward. Just change some of the customized options under the shape, and this can be a completely different guy a year from now. It is so true, Dor. I mean, when I first started looking at this thing, I just said, oh my God, I'll never get the full mileage out of this thing. But for the actor side of me, I just was able to sort of say, okay, just forget everything except that one panel, that animations menu, and just really focus on that. That's where the tools that I need to do my work are. So, like I said, after about 2 months now of working with it, I'm really getting to the point where I feel much more daring. I'm trying different things, and I sometimes just push a button and see what happens, and you get lucky. Happy accidents. Movies are made of happy accidents. So sometimes I try an expression that I think, well, that's never going to work, and then just bam. Yeah, yeah. Happy little trees. That's right. It is everything that I'm using for this avatar, for this character, all came in the same kit, the one kit, the Skylar head. There are some additional packages for different layers of balm for different skin options as well, but those aren't even that expensive. The add-ons are really not that bad. But basically, I haven't used anything but what came with the initial purchase. Skylar is a male. Yes, that's correct. And they have what? I think it's 5 or 6 different named sets. Safia, what do you know, Safia? What the female? I can't recall what they're called. What their names are. Lake. So over at their headquarters, yeah, they've got a lot more for women than for men. A lot more. Ceylon. Okay, right. Yeah, what are the other systems in addition to Lelutka? Isn't there, what's the other big, Catwa, that's it, that's the one. Yeah, yeah. I haven't played with those much at all. I don't know how much functionality, there may be more in the Catwa system. So Clementine, the add-ons are more expensive for the other systems, for Catwa? Yeah, okay, gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, I'm very impressed by Lelutka. I'm not here to to shill for those guys today, but I give credit where it's due. I'm really impressed by what they've put together at this point. And please feel free. I covered a lot, and I've gone pretty quickly. So if you guys come up with questions, please feel free to reach out and ask me those questions. I'm going to give you an email address for me too, which is a good way to get in touch with me, usually better than Second Life. Feel free to email me anytime if I can be of any help. Thank you, Ava. Thank you. My honor. So yeah, if I can ever be any help, please feel free to reach out. Yes, Chantal, you sure can. There you go, Chantal. And I have to say a big thank you to Chantal Harvey because not only is what she's doing here immensely valuable, I think, to the whole grid, I also owe her a lot for what she's done to help us start and launch the Fantasy Fair Film Festival, which has now become, I just can't imagine what it would have been like before that now. I just love the fact that the fair has a film festival component. Chantal and Safia, a big thank you to both of them who for what they've done to bring such an incredibly helpful and exciting and compelling set of content to the fair. And thank you for what you're doing here to help all of us to be better storytellers and better filmmakers ultimately here in Second Life. Thank you so much. Thank you, Clementine. Thank you. My pleasure. My absolute pleasure to be here.